Hello, I'm Wayne from TorqueCars. So when it comes to modifying cars and tuning cars, there's a few principles that you need to bear in mind. So we're going to look at those in this video and explain the best mods and the best approach to your car tuning project to let you really get the maximum from your car. So there's a few different types of mod that you can do to your car. And when it comes to tuning, the idea is to get the car to burn more fuel and more air. So anything that helps the car to do that will result in a power increase. So a lot of mods that we add to our cars actually just remove a restriction. So we think here about exhaust intakes, catalysts, DPF filters, anything that could potentially restrict the flow of air into the engine or out of the engine. It's a good idea to get rid of that. But bear in mind, manufacturers are not idiots. They've got to make sure the car is working efficiently, and it's something that's improved dramatically over the years. Most cars now that you buy will flow adequately well on the intake and the exhaust, and it's only when you increase the power beyond about 20 to 30% that you start to notice a restriction reappearing, and you need to revisit those components and upgrade them. You've got other components that actually help you to make more power, like an intercooler. The job of the intercooler is basically to cool down that charge of air that's been compressed by the turbocharger. So the manufacturer will supply a decent sized intercooler, but it's not designed for long periods of hard driving, because what happens is the intercooler eventually gets warm, and if the actual intercooler itself is warm, it's not going to cool down that charge of air as much. So fitting a larger and better designed intercooler can actually maintain your power for a longer period of time. And the final area of tuning cars is those that actually add power to the car. So things like mapping, the computer in the car that controls all the aspects of fueling, timing, ignition, even the air boost from your turbocharger in a lot of cases, it all comes together to give you quite a significant power gain just by upping all of those parameters. So just with a remap on a turbo engine, you can be looking at about 30% more power, which is a pretty easy upgrade to do. It takes about 15 minutes to 30 minutes depending on who you do it and whether they do the car on a rolling road or they're just downloading a very generic map to your car. But that's a really good way of getting more power. If you don't have a turbo, you're probably only looking at 10 to 15% from some kind of map change, but that's still a significant gain on a lot of cars and certainly worth considering. Increasing the capacity of the turbocharger is another fantastic way of adding power to your car. If your turbo runs out of puff in the higher levels of the RPM range, or if it's struggling to spool up quickly enough at the lower end, you're actually not getting as much power as you otherwise would. So investing in a decent turbocharger that's designed to give you the power profile that you actually want can really pay dividends. It's expensive. Don't ever buy a cheap turbo. We've seen so many people that have bought cheap turbos, imported turbos generally, on auction sites, and they fitted them and they've worked okay for a few months and then they've broken. You really do need a good quality, well-designed turbo that is optimized for the flow rates and has been put together by someone who knows what they're talking about. And the final area of modding cars is just making sure everything is strong enough. You will always find that when you increase the power on your engine, something breaks or a weakness shows up somewhere else. Think about the power levels you're aiming at and whether you need to fit stronger conrods and stronger crankshafts or generally improve the strength of the engine. The typical thing that we see most often is the clutch. Your clutch has been fine with your standard power, but it's got quite a few miles in it, and people have had a remap, they've maybe added 30–40% more power, and that clutch is just starting to slip, it just can't cope. So if you're going for a pretty serious power upgrade on your car, it would make sense to get the clutch done at the same time, just to avoid the inconvenience of having to take it back somewhere and get the clutch changed and updated. So far we've dealt with power aspects of tuning cars, but the dynamics of a car's handling is just as important, getting that suspension set up. You will find that as a car gets older, the suspension geometry will degrade, the suspension turrets tend to move with age and with wear and tear, and the rubber bushings that the suspension mount to will also deteriorate, and there'll be a lot more play in the suspension which will affect the handling. So making sure your suspension is in good condition is a good idea, but think also about uprating it, getting a decent set of coilovers, shock absorbers, springs, you name it. There's so many components out there that can improve the handling of your car, and even adding to the manufacturer's basic setup, maybe strut braces and anti-roll bars if they weren't fitted originally. They can all help to tighten up the handling of the car significantly. And you also need to think about stopping the car. It's all well and good making it go as fast as possible, but you really need to upgrade the brakes in order to cope with that extra momentum that you're carrying. And if you're using a performance car, chances are you are going to be braking more. So a heavy duty brake will last longer. It will also provide effective stopping for a much longer period of time, whereas conventional brakes can suffer from heat fade when they've been used aggressively for long bursts and over long periods of time. So if you're starting to experience problems with your brakes, think about getting those updated and uprated. So we've tried to write in-depth articles on every single make and model. I'm just one person. I can't get there on everything. We really do appreciate all of the feedback and suggestions that we get. We've got over 1,000 articles now on our site that have been put together over the years. We're always adding to them, we're always revising them, and we really do welcome your feedback, your suggestions and your comments on our videos and on the articles on our main sites. So any information that I've gleaned, anything I've learned, I try to record it on one of the web pages of the site so I can share this knowledge with everyone else. And we really are all about sharing it. This community is about getting together and sharing the things we've learned that work on cars and the problems that we've experienced along the way so that we can avoid them. So please drop by our site, TorqueCars.com, and have a look at some of the articles we've written, drop a few comments, we really appreciate that. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. We've got lots of interesting video features coming up, and as we grow, hopefully our revenue will also grow and we'll be able to invest a little bit more into the production. If you look back at some of the early videos, they're quite embarrassing. I didn't have a very good microphone and the setup was really basic, and I know I'm going to look back at this video and think I could have improved it so much in the future. But for now, you're stuck with me sitting here just talking to the camera and passing on my pearls of wisdom that I've picked up over the years. So thanks for dropping by, really nice to have you with us. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to stay tuned.